Is Wisconsin that good? Is Michigan that bad? Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, with instant analysis on what I had said all week was the one game that I wanted to see, and as it turned out, after halftime, there was no reason to watch it anymore, and I certainly didn't. Wisconsin trampled Michigan 35-14. It wasn't anywhere close to 35-14. And when I say, is Michigan that bad? Well, I don't know that Wisconsin's that good, but they're really good. They're pretty good. They certainly trampled their first two opponents 110-0, 61-0, 49-0. Yeah, 110-0 against two marginal, at best, to be kind opponents, but they did to them what other teams won't do to them. So I'm going to save my ascension to the elite of Wisconsin. I'm going to put that on hold until they play a better team. Because when I ask the question, is Wisconsin that good? Man, they're looking that good, but let's hang on. Let's let them get into the meat of the Big Ten Western Division schedule. But when I ask the question, is Michigan that bad? You know what? I'm starting to think, yeah, Michigan is that bad. They were awful from the start. This is a mentally weak team. They're mentally weak. When you look at the talent on the two rosters, you would say that Michigan has better talent. After watching that game, maybe they don't have better talent, but they have comparable talent. They should be able to compete. They're coming off a bye week. So if the coaches cannot prepare their team off a bye week, knowing that they haven't played well, so they don't even have to play the mind games of, okay, we've got a team that has looked amazing, that the national media says is the best team in the Big Ten. That's what they've been told the entire offseason, that this is their year, that they are the odds-on favorite to win the Big Ten. All the big power rankings and formulas that I have said mean nothing, that are garbage, that don't make sense, that gave Ohio State a 6% chance of winning the Big Ten and Michigan a 41% chance of winning the Big Ten. We know how much those power rankings really mean. But Michigan has been listening to that the entire offseason. But they come into these first two games and they don't play well. They play a bad Middle Tennessee team. They beat them by 3 touchdowns. And a whole lot of teams on that schedule for Middle Tennessee are going to beat them by 3 touchdowns. Then they play Army. And if Army had a veteran capable field goal kicker, then Michigan would have come into this game having lost to a 22-point underdog on a last-second field goal. But they were fortunate enough, they didn't do anything to stop the field goal, to block the field goal. The kid just missed a field goal, or else they're 1-1 going into this game. So Michigan already has not been playing well, and some of us, I will include myself, expected them to kick it into gear. They probably can't kick it into a gear that they just don't have. So they had no running game, and this is one disclaimer that we'll make on Michigan's attempt, their effort today, is that they just didn't have any running backs. Ben Mason, who they converted from fullback to a defensive lineman, they had to move over to running back, and he turned out to be awful and turn in one of the more costly plays of the day, because Michigan did have a chance in the first quarter, of course, to make it a game. Wisconsin got the ball out of the gate, and they initially set the tone for this game when on a 4th and 1, they went for it. 4th and 1 at their own 35, they went for it, and Jonathan Taylor easily got the first down right up the middle for 4 yards. And then Jonathan Taylor got the ball again and again and again and did what he does. 23 carries, 203 yards. There was one play on the first drive in which he was jammed up at the middle. He bounced to the outside. The Michigan cornerback Lavert Hill made a very awful play in allowing himself, although he had about 8 teammates right there, allowing himself to get sucked up into traffic. And Taylor just immediately bounced it to the outside and nobody was there. 18 yards. And then 13 yards. And then a touchdown. And Jonathan Taylor already had 50-some yards on the first drive of the game. Again, finished with 203. The Heisman Trophy campaign is off and running for Jonathan Taylor, of course. Wisconsin on the first drive didn't even try to fool anyone. 10 runs, 1 pass. They threw a slant on a third down that Cone delivered perfectly to convert a 3rd and 5. 10 rushes, 1 pass. Touchdown. Well, Michigan looked like they'd get right back in the ball game when Shea Patterson was flush from the pocket. He rolled right. He threw a good ball on the run. The one player on the Michigan offense right now that has a pulse is Ronnie Bell. Really good player. Played his tail off against Army. Probably saved the day for Michigan, making some really good plays in the open field in that game. Pulled down receptions that other Michigan receivers could not. Broke tackles in the open field. Made plays. Hustled to get himself open. That's what he did on this play. In the first Michigan drive, he hustled when the play broke down to get himself open, haul in a play, break through a tackle, and go 68 yards. So it looked like Michigan was in business. And then Ben Mason. No fault of Ben Mason. Ben Mason is a fullback who was converted to defensive line. Think about this. A defensive lineman. A kid whose mindset has changed to, I'm playing defensive line and I just gained 30 pounds. We're going to throw you back on offense and give you a key carry in the game. That's bad coaching and bad decision making. They give Ben Mason the football. It gets stripped out by Reggie Pearson, makes the play on the fumble. Eric Burrell recovers. A couple safeties for Wisconsin get the job done, and Wisconsin's back in business at their own 3 after averting the touchdown, what should have been a touchdown for Michigan, 7-0. There was one bad call against Michigan that in the aftermath doesn't really matter, but at the time it was still a game at 14-0. Ronnie Bell made a full extension of a pass downfield for 25 yards. The officials reversed the call. I thought it was a bad decision, and that should have been a catch. Again, Michigan linebackers not adhering to gap integrity. We saw it time and time again when they showed the shot from behind the quarterback, the up the field shot in the air, where the lineman would engage the offensive lineman and the linebackers had clear paths to the football, and they would get jammed up behind the lineman. And once again, Jonathan Taylor saw that. He broke free to the outside. He runs for a long touchdown. 14-0, 21-0, 28-0, and on from there. Michigan, of course, again, no healthy running backs that have any experience. Zach Charbonnet, who carried 33 times 2 weeks ago against Army, missed the game. We had heard all week that he was questionable for the game or likely out. Sure enough, he didn't play, and Michigan strictly went to the air. The ground game for Michigan was backup quarterback Dylan McCaffrey running for 21 yards. Christian Turner had 6 carries for 17 yards, and that was all meaningless. Zach Charbonnet did play in the game with 2 carries for 6 yards. So Shea Patterson had the one big play to Ronnie Bell, made a really nice play there. Michigan should have scored the touchdown, but they did not because of the Ben Mason fumble. And after that, Patterson played a pretty bad game. 14 of 32 for 219, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. The touchdowns, of course, were meaningless, and that was after he was benched. So Jim Harbaugh benches Shea Patterson in the third quarter. Dylan McCaffrey comes in. He took a shot to the head. Unfortunately, had to leave because he was really hammered. Again, took a shot to the head as he was attempting to slide. He went 3 for 8 for 40 yards. Michigan completely outclassed both sides of the football in this one. The defense looked awful. They were run over for, again, 203 out of Jonathan Taylor, but 359 yards rushing for Wisconsin, 6.3 per carry, 5 rushing touchdowns. Jack Cone only had to put it up 16 times. He converted 13 of 16 through the air for a $128. Michigan's got to do some soul searching, and I don't know if the drive, the motivation is there in their soul. Because if they had a bye week after a poor performance at home against Army, they had to know what was coming in this game. They should not have been taken by surprise. 2 weeks to prepare, coming off a bad showing against Army, and they're going to Camp Randall Stadium against Wisconsin, knowing exactly what Wisconsin's going to do. That means run the ball down your throats and play remarkably sound defense. And Michigan they were unprepared. The coaching staff did a poor job. The players, I thought that they hustled and had fight and played hard for the first portion of the game, and then human nature kind of sunk in after that, and Michigan had some give up in them after that. 35-14, Michigan falls to Wisconsin. What's on the path for Wisconsin going forward is a date with Northwestern, who looked atrocious on offense, not surprisingly, with Hunter Johnson at quarterback and a limited array of skill position players. So the Wisconsin defense that was faced with at least highly thought of skill on the Michigan offense in the form of Ronnie Bell, Nico Collins, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Tariq Black. Those players will not see anything close to that against Northwestern, and that's a home game for the Badgers against Northwestern coming up in 1 week. That's next week, Northwestern hosting Wisconsin. And then for the Michigan Wolverines, let's see what they have. They have got to get themselves together in a hurry. For Michigan, well, they've got a bit of a bye week against Rutgers, but the way Michigan played today, they're going to have to show up and play against Rutgers. Rutgers gave Boston College a decent game today, but they come back to the big house to take on Rutgers, and they've got 1 week to prepare for Iowa. So, if Michigan's going to play this brand of football this season, then maybe Jim Harbaugh is on the hot seat for this season. I did not believe that to be the case because I thought that this was roughly a 9-3 football team. I picked them to go 10-2 preseason, 7-2 in the Big Ten. So I thought that they would lose to somebody along the way and then also lose to Ohio State. This Michigan team may lose 4 or 5 games as it stands right now if they don't pull it together. Awful on offense, awful on defense. They don't have an identity as an offense. They've been trying to move into this spread, up-tempo semblance of an air raid type attack. They don't necessarily have maybe the offensive line personnel not used to blocking this scheme. The running backs are depleted. Zach Charbonnet's the one guy that they have, but obviously he's been compromised by injury. Your thoughts on Michigan football, and let's not forget Wisconsin football. The Badgers ranked in my top 25, that actually makes sense, coming into this game, number 13 in the country. That should soar for Michigan. They're out of sight, should not even be concerned or worried about rankings. They basically need to think about their own deficiencies and what they need to do to be a decent football team going forward and not worry about rankings and college football playoff appearances or anything like that, because they are light years away from that. And Jim Harbaugh is now coaching for, if not his life at Michigan, his coaching position at Michigan, because we don't know what the administration is thinking. He is certainly coaching for respect among the coaching ranks and amongst college football nation as Michigan is falling apart. This is only one game, and it was against a really good team, and it was on the road. But with 2 weeks to prepare, coming off that kind of effort in which they should have been at heightened alert to pull it together to play their best game, they failed miserably. Wisconsin jumps out 35-0. They cruise 35-14. Again, your thoughts on Michigan football and the Wisconsin Badgers coming up here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We will see you with more instant analysis from today's games.